Missouri is a state in the Midwestern region of the United States. 6. Ranking 21st in land area, it borders Iowa to the north, Illinois, Kentucky and Tennessee to the east, Arkansas to the south, and Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska to the west. In the south are the Ozarks, a forested highland providing timber, minerals, and recreation. At 1.5 billion years old, the St. Francois Mountains are among the oldest in the world. The Missouri River, after which the state is named, flows through the center and into the Mississippi River, which makes up the eastern border. With over 6 million residents, it is the 19th most populous state of the country. The largest urban areas are St. Louis, Kansas City, Springfield, and Columbia. The capital is Jefferson City. Humans have inhabited present-day Missouri for at least 12,000 years. The Mississippian culture, which emerged in the 9th century, built cities with pyramidal and other ceremonial mounds before declining in the 14th century. The indigenous Osage and Missouri nations inhabited the area when European people arrived in the 17th century. The French incorporated the territory into Louisiana. Foundings: Genevieve in 1735 and St. Louis in 1764. After a brief period of Spanish rule, the United States acquired Missouri as part of the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. Americans from the upland South rushed into the new Missouri territory, taking advantage of its productive agricultural plains. Missouri played a central role in the westward expansion of the United States. 7. Missouri was admitted as a slave state as part of the Missouri Compromise of 1820. As a border state, Missouri's role in the American Civil War was complex, and it was subject to rival governments, raids, and guerrilla warfare. After the war, both Greater St. Louis and the Kansas City metropolitan area became large centers of industrialization and business. Today, the state is divided into 114 counties and the independent city of St. Louis. Missouri has been called the mother of the West, the Cave State, and the Show Me State. 8. Its culture blends elements of the Midwestern and Southern United States. It is the birthplace of the musical genres ragtime, Kansas City jazz, and St. Louis blues. The well-known Kansas City-style barbecue and the lesser-known St. Louis-style barbecue can be found across the state and beyond. Missouri is a major center of beer brewing and has some of the most permissive alcohol laws in the U.S. 9. It is home to Anheuser-Busch, the world's largest beer producer, and produces Missouri wine, especially in the Missouri Rhineland. Outside the state's major cities, popular tourist destinations include the Lake of the Ozarks, Table Rock Lake, and Branson. Some of the largest companies based in the state include Cerner, Express Scripts, Monsanto, Emerson Electric, Edward Jones, H&R Block, Wells Fargo Advisors, Centene Corporation, and O'Reilly Auto Parts. Well-known universities in Missouri include the University of Missouri, St. Louis University, and Washington University in St. Louis. 10. Nickname Esther is no official state nickname. 19. However, Missouri's unofficial nickname is the Show Me State, which appears on its license plates. This phrase has several origins. One is popularly ascribed to a speech by Congressman Willard Vandiver in 1899, who declared that I come from a state that raises corn and cotton, cockleburs and Democrats, and frothy eloquence neither convinces nor satisfies me. I'm from Missouri, and you have got to show me. This is in keeping with the saying I'm from Missouri, which means I'm skeptical of the matter and not easily convinced. 20, however, according to researchers, the phrase show me was already in use before the 1890s. 21 another one states that it is a reference to Missouri miners who were taken to Leadville, Colorado, to replace striking workers. Since the new miners were unfamiliar with the mining methods, they required frequent instruction. Pit bosses began saying, "That man is from Missouri. You'll have to show him." 19 other nicknames for Missouri include the Lead State, the Bullion State, the Ozark State, the Mother of the West, the Iron Mountain State, and Pennsylvania of the West. 22. It is also known as the Cave State. 23. 53 because there are more than 7,300 recorded caves in the state, second to Tennessee. Perry County is the county with the most caves and the single longest cave. 20 for 25. The official state motto is Salus Populi Suprema Lex Esto, Latin for let the welfare of the people be the supreme. Law 26. Early history archaeological excavations along river valleys have shown continuous habitation since about 9000 BCE. 27. Beginning before 1000 CE, the people of the Mississippian culture created regional political centers at present-day St. Louis and across the Mississippi River at Cahokia, near present-day Collinsville, Illinois. Their large cities included thousands of individual residences. Still, they are known for their surviving massive earthwork mounds, built for religious, political, and social reasons, in platform, ridgetop, and conical shapes. Cahokia was the center of a regional trading network that reached from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. The civilization declined by 1400 CE, and most descendants left the area long before the arrival of Europeans. St. Louis was at one time known as Mound City by the European Americans because of the numerous surviving prehistoric mounds since lost to urban development. The Mississippian culture left mounds throughout the Middle Mississippi and Ohio River valleys, extending into the southeast and the upper river. The Gateway Arch in St. Louis, the land that became the state of Missouri, was part of numerous different territories, possessed changing and often indeterminate borders, and had many different Native American and European names between the 1600s and statehood. For much of the first half of the 1700s, the west bank of the Mississippi River that would become Missouri was mostly uninhabited, something of a no-man's land that kept peace between the Illinois on the east bank of the Mississippi River and to the north, and the Osage and Missouri Indians of the lower Missouri Valley. In the early 1700s, French traders and missionaries explored the whole of the Mississippi Valley and named the region Louisiana. Around the same time, a different group of French Canadians established 5 villages on the east bank of the Mississippi River and identified their settlements as being in Le Pays de Illinois, the country of the Illinois. When settlers of French Canadian descent began crossing the Mississippi River to establish settlements such as Genevieve, they continued to identify their settlements as being in the Illinois country. At the same time, the French settlements on both sides of the Mississippi River were part of the French province of Louisiana. To distinguish the settlements in the Middle Mississippi Valley from French settlements in the Lower Mississippi Valley around New Orleans, French officials and inhabitants referred to the Middle Mississippi Valley as La Haute Louisiane, the High Louisiana, or Upper Louisiana. The first European settlers were mostly ethnic French Canadians, who created their first settlement in Missouri at present-day Genevieve, about 45 miles, 72 kilometers south of St. Louis. They had migrated in about 1750 from the Illinois country. They came from colonial villages on the east side of the Mississippi River, where soils were becoming exhausted and there was insufficient river bottom land for the growing population. The early Missouri settlements included many enslaved Africans and Native Americans, and slave labor was central to both commercial agriculture and the fur trade. St. Genevieve became a thriving agricultural center, producing enough surplus wheat, corn, and tobacco to ship tons of grain annually downriver to lower Louisiana for trade. Grain production in the Illinois country was critical to the survival of lower Louisiana, and especially the city of New Orleans. St. Louis was founded on February 14, 1764, by French fur traders Gilbert Antoine de Saint-Maxent, Pierre Laclede, and Auguste Chouteau, 28. From 1764 to 1803, European control of the area west of the Mississippi to the northernmost part of the Missouri River Basin, called Louisiana, was assumed by the Spanish as part of the Viceroyalty of New Spain, due to Treaty of Fontainebleau 29, in order to have Spain join with France in the war against England. The arrival of the Spanish in St. Louis was in September 1767. St. Louis became the center of a regional for trade with Native American tribes that extended up the Missouri and Mississippi rivers, dominating the regional economy for decades. Trading partners of major firms shipped their furs from St. Louis by river down to New Orleans for export to Europe. They provided a variety of goods to traders for sale and trade with their Native American clients. The fur trade and associated businesses made St. Louis an early financial center and provided the wealth for some to build fine houses and import luxury items. Its location near the confluence of the Illinois River meant it also handled produce from the agricultural areas. River traffic and trade along the Mississippi were integral to the state's economy. As the area's first major city, St. Louis expanded greatly after the invention of the steamboat and the increased river trade. 19th century fur traders descending the Missouri by Missouri painter George Caleb Bingham. Napoleon Bonaparte had gained Louisiana for French ownership from Spain in 1800 under the Treaty of San Ildefonso, so after it had been a Spanish colony since 1762. But the treaty was kept secret. Louisiana remained nominally under Spanish control until a transfer of power to France on November 30, 1803, just 3 weeks before the cession to the United States. Part of the 1803 Louisiana Purchase by the United States, Missouri earned the nickname Gateway to the West because it served as a significant departure point for expeditions and settlers heading to the West during the 19th century. St. Charles, just west of St. Louis, was the starting point and the return destination of the Lewis and Clark expedition, which ascended the Missouri River in 1804 to explore the western lands to the Pacific Ocean. For decades, St. Louis was a major supply point for parties of settlers heading west. As many of the early settlers in western Missouri migrated from the Upper South, they brought enslaved African Americans as agricultural laborers, and they desired to continue their culture and the institution of slavery. They settled predominantly in 17 counties along the Missouri River, in an area of flatlands that enabled plantation agriculture and became known as Little Dixie. The state was rocked by the 1811 to 12 New Madrid earthquakes. Casualties were few due to the sparse population. Admission as a state in 1801. See also History of Slavery in Missouri States and Territories of the United States as a result of Missouri's admission as a state on August 10, 1821. The remainder of the former Missouri Territory became unorganized territory. In 1821, the former Missouri Territory was admitted as a slave state under the Missouri Compromise and with a temporary state capital in St. Charles. In 1826, the capital was shifted to its permanent location of Jefferson City, also on the Missouri River. Originally, the state's western border was a straight line, defined as the meridian passing through the Cosmith. 30, the point where the Kansas River enters the Missouri River. The river has moved since this designation. This line is known as the Osage boundary. 31. In 1836, the Platte Purchase was added to the northwest corner of the state after purchase of the land from the native tribes, making the Missouri River the border north of the Kansas River. This addition increased the land area of what was already the largest state in the Union at the time, about 66,500 square miles, 172,000 square kilometers, to Virginia's 65,000 square miles, which then included West Virginia. 32. In the early 1830s, Mormon migrants from northern states and Canada began settling near Independence and areas just north of there. Conflicts over religion and slavery arose between the old settlers, mainly from the south, and the Mormons, mainly from the north. The Mormon War erupted in 1838. By 1839, with the help of an extermination order by Governor Lilburn Boggs, the old settlers forcibly expelled the Mormons from Missouri and confiscated their lands. Conflicts over slavery exacerbated border tensions among the states and territories. From 1838 to 1839, a border dispute with Iowa over the so-called Honey Lands resulted in both states calling up of militias along the border. With increasing migration, From the 1830s to the 1860s, Missouri's population almost doubled with every decade. Most newcomers were American-born, but many Irish and German immigrants arrived in the late 1840s and 1850s. As a majority were Catholic, they set up their own religious institutions in the state, which had been mostly Protestant. Many settled in cities, creating a regional and then state network of Catholic churches and schools. 19th-century German immigrants created the wine industry along the Missouri River and the beer industry in St. Louis. While many German immigrants were strongly anti-slavery, 3330 for many Irish immigrants living in cities were pro-slavery, fearing that liberating African-American slaves would create a glut of unskilled labor, driving wages down. 30 for most Missouri farmers practiced subsistence farming before the American Civil War. The majority of those who held slaves had fewer than 5 each. Planters, defined by some historians as those holding 20 slaves or more, were concentrated in the counties known as Little Dixie, in the central part of the state along the Missouri River. The tensions over slavery chiefly had to do with the future of the state and nation. In 1860, enslaved African Americans made up less than 10% of the state's population of 1,182,012. 35. In order to control the flooding of farmland and low-lying villages along the Mississippi, the state had completed construction of 140 miles, 230 kilometers of levees along the river by 1860. 36. American Civil War Mine Articles, Ordinance of Secession, Missouri in the American Civil War, and Confederate Government of Missouri vs. Raid in the Trans-Mississippi Theater. 1864, after the secession of Southern states began in 1861. The Missouri legislature called for the election of a special convention on secession. This convention voted against secession, but also qualified their support of the Union. In the aftermath of Battle of Fort Sumter, pro-Southern Governor Claiborne F. Jackson ordered the mobilization of several hundred members of the state militia, who had gathered in a camp in St. Louis for training. In secret, he also requested Confederate arms and artillery to help take the St. Louis arsenal. Alarmed at this action and discovering the Confederate aid, General Nathaniel Lyon struck first, encircling the camp and forcing the state troops to surrender. Lyon directed his soldiers, largely non-English-speaking German immigrants, to march the prisoners through the streets, and this led to riot by pro-secession citizens. While it is disputed how it started, this riot led to violence and Union soldiers killed by St. Louis civilians. The event as a whole is called the Camp Jackson Affair. These events sharpened the divisions within the state. Governor Jackson appointed Sterling Price, president of the Convention on Secession, as head of the new Missouri State Guard. In the face of Union General Lyon's rapid advance through the state, Jackson and Price were forced to flee the capital of Jefferson City on June 14, 1861. In Neosho, Missouri, Jackson called the state legislature into session to call for secession. However, the elected legislative body was split between pro-Union and pro-Confederate. As such, few of the pro-Unionists attended the session called in Neosho, and the Ordinance of Secession was quickly adopted. The Confederacy recognized Missouri's secession on October 30, 1861. With the elected governor absent from the capital and the legislators largely dispersed, the state convention was reassembled with most of its members present, save 20 who fled south with Jackson's forces. The convention declared all offices vacant and installed Hamilton Gamble as the new governor of Missouri. President Lincoln's administration immediately recognized Gamble's government as the legal Missouri government. The federal government's decision enabled raising pro-Union militia forces for service within the state and volunteer regiments for the Union Army. Fighting ensued between Union forces and a combined army of General Price's Missouri State Guard and Confederate troops from Arkansas and Texas under General Ben McCulloch. After winning victories at the Battle of Wilson's Creek and the Siege of Lexington, Missouri, and suffering losses elsewhere, the Confederate forces retreated to Arkansas and later Marshall, Texas. In the face of a largely reinforced Union army, Though regular Confederate troops staged some large-scale raids into Missouri, the fighting in the state for the next 3 years consisted chiefly of guerrilla warfare. Citizen soldiers or insurgents, such as Captain William Quantrill, Frank and Jesse James, the younger brothers, and William T. Anderson made use of quick, small unit tactics, pioneered by the Missouri Partisan Rangers. Such insurgencies also rose in portions of the Confederacy occupied by the Union during the Civil War. Historians have portrayed stories of the James brothers outlawyers as an American Robin Hood myth. 37. The vigilante activities of the Bald Knobbers of the Ozarks in the 1880s were an unofficial continuation of insurgent mentality long after the official end of the war, and they are a favorite theme in Branson's self-image. 38. Missouri remained electorally competitive during the Jim Crow era and did not disenfranchise African Americans, who comprised less than 10% of the state's population from 1870 to 1960. In particular, Missouri never implemented a poll tax as a requirement to vote. 39. However, Missouri did enact racial segregation. Democratic President Harry S. Truman grew up in Missouri, where segregation was practiced and largely accepted. Truman would later issue Executive Order 9981 in July 1948, prohibiting racial segregation in the armed forces. 40. The Progressive Era 1890s to 1920s saw numerous prominent leaders from Missouri trying to end corruption and modernize politics, government, and society. Joseph Holy Joe Folk was a key leader who made a strong appeal to the middle class and rural evangelical Protestants. Folk was elected governor as a progressive reformer and Democrat in the 1904 election. He promoted what he called the Missouri idea, the concept of Missouri as a leader in public morality through popular control of law and strict enforcement. He successfully conducted antitrust prosecutions, ended free railroad passes for state officials, extended bribery statutes, improved election laws, required formal registration for lobbyists, made racetrack gambling illegal, and enforced the Sunday closing law. He helped enact progressive legislation, including an initiative and referendum provision, regulation of elections, education, employment and child labor, railroads, food, business, and public utilities. Several efficiency-oriented examiner boards and commissions were established during Folk's administration, including many agricultural boards and the Missouri Library Commission. 41. General John J. Pershing, commander of the American Expeditionary Forces in World War I, was raised in Locklead, Missouri. Between the Civil War and the end of World War II, Missouri transitioned from a rural economy to a hybrid industrial service agricultural economy as the Midwest rapidly industrialized. The expansion of railroads to the west transformed Kansas City into a major transportation hub within the nation. The growth of the Texas cattle industry, along with this increased rail infrastructure and the invention of the refrigerated boxcar, also made Kansas City a major meat packing center, as large cattle drives from Texas brought herds of cattle to Dodge City and other Kansas towns. There, the cattle were loaded onto trains destined for Kansas City, where they were butchered and distributed to the eastern markets. The first half of the 20th century was the height of Kansas City's prominence, and its downtown became a showcase for stylish Art Deco skyscrapers as construction boomed. African-American boy in a sharecropper shack, New Madrid County, 1938. In 1930, there was a diphtheria epidemic in the area around Springfield, which killed approximately 100 people. Serum was rushed to the area, and medical personnel stopped the epidemic. During the mid-1950s and 1960s, St. Louis and Kansas City suffered deindustrialization and loss of jobs in railroads and manufacturing, as did other Midwestern industrial cities. St. Charles claims to be the site of the first interstate highway project in 1956. 42. Such highway construction made it easy for middle-class residents to leave the city for newer housing developed in the suburbs, often former farmland where land was available at lower prices. These major cities have gone through decades of readjustment to develop different economies and adjust to demographic changes. Suburban areas have developed separate job markets, both in knowledge industries and services, such as major retail malls. This is the first NAACP warning ever covering an entire state. 54-55. According to a 2018 report by the Missouri Attorney General's Office, for the past 18 years, African Americans, Hispanics, and other people of color are disproportionately affected by stops, searches, and arrests. 56. The same report found that the biggest discrepancy was in 2017, when black motorists were 85% more likely to be pulled over in traffic stops. 57. In 2018, the USDA announced its plans to relocate Economic Research Service and National Institute of Food and Agriculture NIFA to Kansas City. They have since decided on a specific location in downtown Kansas City, Missouri. 58. With the addition of the KC streetcar project and construction of the Sprint Center Arena, the downtown area in KC has attracted investment in new offices, hotels, and residential complexes. Both Kansas City and St. Louis are undergoing a rebirth in their downtown areas with the addition of the new Power and Light and Ballpark Village districts, and the renovation of existing historical buildings in each downtown area. 59. The 2019 announcement of an MLS expansion team in St. Louis is driving even more development in the downtown west area of St. Louis. 60. Kansas City has experienced a boom in population, with new developments such as 3 light apartments being centered in downtown Kansas City. 61-62, as well as suburban development in the Northland. 63. Geography Maine article, Geography of Missouri borders 8 different states, a figure equaled only by its neighbor, Tennessee. Missouri is bounded by Iowa on the north, by Illinois, Kentucky, and Tennessee across the Mississippi River on the east, on the south by Arkansas, and by Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska, the last across the Missouri River on the west. Whereas the northern and southern boundaries are straight lines, the Missouri Boot Heel extends south between the St. Francis and the Mississippi Rivers. The 2 largest rivers are the Mississippi, which defines the eastern boundary of the state, and the Missouri River, which flows from west to east through the state, essentially connecting the 2 largest metros of Kansas City and St. Louis, although today it is usually considered part of the Midwest. 64. Missouri was historically seen by many as a border state, chiefly because of the settlement of migrants from the South and its status as a slave state before the Civil War, balanced by the influence of St. Louis. The counties that made up Little Dixie were those along the Missouri River in the center of the state, settled by Southern migrants who held the greatest concentration of slaves. In 2005, Missouri received 16,695,000 visitors to its national parks and other recreational areas totaling 101,000 acres for 110 square kilometers, giving it $7.1 million in annual revenues, 26.6% of its operating expenditures, 65 north of, and in some cases just south of, the Missouri River lie the northern plains that stretch into Iowa, Nebraska, and Kansas. Here, rolling hills remain from the glaciation that once extended from the Canadian Shield to the Missouri River. Missouri has many large river bluffs along the Mississippi, Missouri, and Meramec rivers. Southern Missouri rises to the Ozark Mountains, a dissected plateau surrounding the Precambrian igneous St. Francois Mountains. This region also hosts karst topography characterized by high limestone content with the formation of sinkholes and caves. 66. The Bell Mountain Wilderness of southern Missouri's Mark Twain National Forest. The southeastern part of the state is known as the Missouri Boot Heel region, which is part of the Mississippi Alluvial Plain or Mississippi Embayment. This region is the lowest, flattest, warmest, and wettest part of the state. It is also among the poorest, as the economy there is mostly agricultural. 67. It is also the most fertile, with cotton and rice crops predominant. The Boot Heel was the epicenter of the Fornu Madrid earthquakes of 1811 and 1812. Climate Maine article, Climate of Missouri-Capon climate types of Missouri generally has a humid continental climate with cool, sometimes cold, winters and hot, humid, and wet summers. In the southern part of the state, particularly in the Boot Heel, the climate becomes humid subtropical. Located in the interior United States, Missouri often experiences extreme temperatures. Without high mountains or oceans nearby to moderate temperature, its climate is alternately influenced by air from the cold Arctic and the hot and humid Gulf of Mexico. Missouri's highest recorded temperature is 118 degrees Fahrenheit, 48 Celsius, at Warsaw and Union on July 14, 1954, while the lowest recorded temperature is 40 F for OC, also at Warsaw on February 13, 1905. Located in Tornado Alley, Missouri also receives extreme weather in the form of severe thunderstorms and tornadoes. On May 22, 2011, a massive EF5 tornado killed 158 people and destroyed roughly one-third of the city of Joplin. The tornado caused an estimated $1 to $3 billion in damages, killed 159 people, and injured more than 1,000. It was the first EF5 to hit the state since 1957 and the deadliest in the U.S. since 1947, making it the 7th deadliest tornado in American history and 27th deadliest in the world. St. Louis and its suburbs also have a history of experiencing particularly severe tornadoes. The most recent one of note being an EF4 that damaged Lambert St. Louis International Airport on April 22nd. 2/11. One of the worst tornadoes in American history struck St. Louis on May 27, 1896, killing at least 255 people and causing $10 million in damage, equivalent to $3.9 billion in 2009 or $5.7 billion in today's dollars. Wildlife Maine article, Wildlife of Missouri River near Rocheport. Missouri is home to diverse flora and fauna, including several endemic species. 69. There is a large amount of fresh water present due to the Mississippi River, Missouri River, Table Rock Lake, and Lake of the Ozarks, with numerous smaller tributary rivers, streams, and lakes. North of the Missouri River, the state is primarily rolling hills of the Great Plains, whereas south of the Missouri River, the state is dominated by the Oak Hickory Central U.S. hardwood forest. Forests, recreation, and commercial uses of public forests, including grazing, logging, and mining, increased after World War II. Fishermen, hikers, campers, and others started lobbying to protect forest areas with a wilderness character. During the 1930s and 1940s, Aldo Leopold, Arthur Carhart, and Bob Marshall developed a wilderness policy for the Forest Service. Their efforts bore fruit with the Wilderness Act of 1964, which designated wilderness areas where the earth and its community of life are untrammeled by men, where man himself is a visitor and does not remain. This included second-growth public forests like the Mark Twain National Forest. 70. The United States Census Bureau estimates that the population of Missouri was 6,137,428 on July 1, 2019, a 2.48% increase since the 2010 United States Census. 72. Missouri had a population of 5,987, according to the 2010 Census, an increase of 137,525 to 0.3% since the year 2010. From 2010 to 2018, this includes a natural increase of 137,560 for people since the last census, for 180,763 births, less 343,199 deaths, and an increase of 88,088 people due to net migration into the state. Immigration from outside the United States resulted in a net increase of 50,450 people, and migration within the country produced a net increase of 37,638 people. More than half of Missourians, 3,294,936 people, or 55.0%, live within the state's two largest metropolitan areas, St. Louis and Kansas City. The state's population density of 86.9 people per square mile in 2009 was also closer to the national average 86.8 in 2009 than any other state. The top countries of origin for Missouri's immigrants in 2018 were Mexico, China, India, Vietnam, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. 73 according to HUD's 2022 Annual Homeless Assessment Report. There were an estimated 5,990 to homeless people in Missouri. 70 for 75. The U.S. Census of 2010 found that the population center of the United States is in Texas County, while the 2000 census found the mean population center to be in Phelps County. The center of population of Missouri is in Osage County, in the city of Westphalia. 80. In 2004, the population included 194,000 foreign-born people, 3.4% of the state population. The five largest ancestry groups in Missouri are German 27.4%, Irish 14.8%, English 10.2%, American 8.5%, and French 3.7%. Ethnic origins in Missouri. German Americans are an ancestry group present throughout Missouri. African Americans are a substantial part of the population in St. Louis. 56.6% of African Americans in the state lived in St. Louis or St. Louis County as of the 2010 census. Kansas City, Boone County, and in the southeastern Boot Heel and some parts of the Missouri River Valley, where plantation agriculture was once important. Missouri Creoles of French ancestry are concentrated in the Mississippi River Valley, south of St. Louis. See Missouri French. Kansas City is home to large and growing immigrant communities from Latin America, especially Mexico and Colombia, Africa and Sudan, Somalia and Nigeria, and Southeast Asia, including China and the Philippines, and Europe like the former Yugoslavia. See Bosnian American. A notable Cherokee Indian population exists in Missouri, and 30,518 identified as being Native American alone in 2020, while 152,917 did in combination with one or more other races. 81 in 2004. 6.6% of the state's population was reported as younger than 5, 25.5% younger than 18, and 13.5% 65 or older. Females were approximately 51.4% of the population. 81.3% of Missouri residents were high school graduates, more than the national average, and 21.6% had a bachelor's degree or higher. 3.4% of Missourians were foreign-born, and 5.1% reported speaking a language other than English at home. In 2010, there were 2,349,955 households in Missouri, with 2.45 people per household. The homeownership rate was 70.0%, and the median value of an owner-occupied housing unit was $137,700. The median household income for 2010 was $46,262, or $24,720 per capita. There was 14.0%, 1,018,118 of Missourians living below the poverty line in 2010. The mean commute time to work was 23.8 minutes. Religion in Missouri, 2014, 96, Protestantism 58%, Roman Catholicism 16%, Mormonism 1%, other Christian 2%, no religion 20%, Buddhism 1%, other religion 2%. According to a Pew Research study 96, conducted in 2014, 80% of Missourians identify with a religion. 77% affiliate with Christianity and its various denominations, and the other 3% are adherents of non-Christian religions. The remaining 20% have no religion, with 2% specifically identifying as atheists and 3% identifying as agnostics. Economy. See also Missouri locations by per capita income. U.S. Department of Commerce's Bureau of Economic Analysis estimated Missouri's gross state product was $422 billion in 2023. Per capita personal income in 2023 was $61,300, ranking 34th in the nation. 100 for major industries include agriculture, aerospace, transportation equipment, food processing, chemicals, printing, publishing, electrical equipment, light manufacturing, and financial services. The agriculture products of the state are beef, soybeans, pork, dairy products, hay, corn, poultry, sorghum, cotton, rice, and eggs. Missouri is ranked 6th in the nation for the production of hogs and 7th for cattle. Missouri is ranked in the top 5 states in the nation for production of soybeans, and it is ranked 4th in the nation for the production of rice. In 2001, there were 108,000 farms, the second largest number in any state after Texas. Missouri actively promotes its rapidly growing wine industry. According to the Missouri Partnership, Missouri's agriculture industry contributes $33 billion in GDP to Missouri's economy and generates $88 billion in sales and more than 378,000 jobs. 105 Marana Caverns. Missouri has vast quantities of limestone. Other resources mined are lead, coal, and crushed stone. Missouri produces the most lead of all the states. Most of the lead mines are in the central eastern portion of the state. Missouri also ranks first or near first in the production of lime, a key ingredient in Portland cement. Missouri also has a growing science, agricultural technology, and biotechnology field. Monsanto, formerly one of the largest biotech companies in America, was based in St. Louis until it was acquired by Bayer Ag in 2018. It is now part of the Crop Science Division of Bayer Corporation, Bayer's U.S. subsidiary. Tourism, services, and wholesale, retail trade follow manufacturing, and important tourism benefits from the many rivers, lakes, caves, parks, etc. throughout the state. In addition to a network of state parks, Missouri is home to Gateway Arch National Park in St. Louis and the Ozark National Scenic Riverways. A much-visited show cave is Marana Caverns in Stanton. Missouri is the only state to have the Maine Federal Reserve Bank's Kansas City Bank pictured. Missouri is the only state in the Union to have the Federal Reserve Banks, one in Kansas City serving western Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Colorado, northern New Mexico, and Wyoming, and one in St. Louis serving eastern Missouri, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, western Kentucky, western Tennessee, northern Mississippi, and all of Arkansas. 106, the state's seasonally adjusted unemployment rate in April 2017 was 3.9%. In 2017, Missouri became a right-to-work state, 108, but in August 2018, Missouri voters rejected a right-to-work law with 67% to 33%. 109, 110, 111 Taxation. Maine article. Taxation in Missouri. Personal income is taxed in 10 different earning brackets, ranging from 1.5% to 6%. Missouri's sales tax rate for most items is 4.2 to 5%, with some additional local levies. More than 2,500 Missouri local governments rely on property taxes levied on real property, real estate, and personal property. Most personal property is exempt, except for motorized vehicles. Exempt real estate includes property owned by governments and property used as nonprofit cemeteries, exclusively for religious worship, for schools and colleges, and purely charitable purposes. There is no inheritance tax and limited Missouri estate tax related to federal estate tax collection. In 2017, the Tax Foundation rated Missouri as having the 5th best corporate tax index, 112, and the 15th best overall tax climate. 112. Missouri's corporate income tax rate is 6.25%. However, 50% of federal income tax payments may be deducted before computing taxable income. leading to an effective rate of 5.2%. 113 energy in 2012. Missouri had roughly 22,000 megawatts of installed electricity generation capacity. 114. In 2011, 82% of Missouri's electricity was generated by coal. 115. 10% was generated from the state's only nuclear power plant. 115. The Callaway plant in Callaway County, northeast of Jefferson City. 5% was generated by natural gas. 115. 1% was generated by hydroelectric sources. 115. Such as the dams for Truman Lake and Lake of the Ozarks. Missouri has a small but growing amount of wind and solar power line capacity, increased from 309 megawatts in 2009 to 459 megawatts in 2011, while photovoltaics have increased from 0.2 megawatts to 1.3 megawatts over the same period. 116. 117. As of 2016, Missouri's solar installations had reached 141 megawatts. 118 oil wells in Missouri produced 120,000 barrels of crude oil in fiscal 2012. 119. There are no oil refineries in Missouri. 117. 120. Transportation. Missouri has two major airport hubs. St. Louis Lambert International Airport is the primary international airport serving metropolitan St. Louis, Missouri, United States. Commonly referred to as Lambert Field or simply Lambert, it is the largest and busiest airport in the state of Missouri. The airport covers 3,793 acres, 1,535 hectares, to 3 of land. STL is located 14 miles 23 kilometers northwest of downtown St. Louis in unincorporated St. Louis County between Berkeley and Bridgeton. The airport provides non-stop service to airports throughout the United States and to Canada, Mexico, the Caribbean, and Europe. In 2024, it served nearly 16 million passengers to over 80 non-stop domestic and international destinations. Named for Albert von Lambert, an Olympic medalist and prominent St. Louis aviator, the airport rose to international prominence in the 20th century thanks to its association with Charles Lindbergh, its groundbreaking air traffic control ATC, its status as the primary hub of Trans World Airlines TWA, and its iconic terminal, 5 St. Louis Lambert International Airport is connected by the Metrolink mass transportation rail system to other parts of the St. Louis metropolitan area, including a future connection to the region's secondary commercial airport, Mid-America St. Louis Airport, about 37 miles 60 kilometers to the east. 6 Kansas City International Airport IATA, MCI, ICAO, KMCI, FAA LID. MCI, originally Mid-Continent International Airport, is a public airport in Kansas City, Missouri, located 15 miles 24 kilometers northwest of downtown Kansas City in Platte County, Missouri. 2. The airport was opened in 1972 and a new complex in the airport was completed in 2023, replacing the old one. MCI replaced Kansas City Municipal Airport MKC in 1972, with all scheduled passenger airline flights moved from MKC to MCI. It serves the Kansas City metropolitan area and is the primary passenger airport for much of western Missouri and eastern Kansas. The airport covers 10,680 acres, 16.7 square miles, 43.2 square kilometers, and has 3 runways. The airport has always been a civilian airport and has never been assigned an Air National Guard unit. Since the 2020 pandemic shutdown, the number of peak day scheduled aircraft departures has been steadily recovering. As of October 2022, there were 303 daily arrivals and departures. For non-stop service was offered to 47 airports, including Kankan, Mont, from 4,500 acres to 10,680 acres today. Excluding military airfields and general aviation airports, MCI ranks 6th in the United States in terms of overall acreage for a commercial, public airport, after Denver International Airport at 531 acres, Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport at 17,207 acres, Southwest Florida International Airport at 13,555 acres, Dulles International Airport at 13,000 acres, and Orlando International Airport at 11,605 acres. MCI is also a former hub for Braniff, Eastern, Midwest, Trans World, and Vanguard. Rail Missouri Passenger Rail Station Samtrak Station in Kirkwood consists city streetcar near Union Station map of Southwest Missouri Railroad Company, C1907. Two of the nation's 3 busiest rail centers are in Missouri. Kansas City is a major railroad hub for BNSF Railway reporting mark. BNSF is the largest freight railroad in the United States, one of 6 North American Class 1 railroads. BNSF has 36,000 employees, 133,400 miles, 53,800 kilometers of track in 28 states, and over 8,000 locomotives. 2. It has 3 transcontinental routes that provide rail connections between the western and eastern United States. BNSF trains traveled over 169 million miles, 272 million kilometers in 2010, more than any other North American railroad. 3. The BNSF Railway Company is the principal operating subsidiary of parent company Burlington Northern Santa Fe, headquartered in Fort Worth, Texas. The railroad's parent company is a wholly owned subsidiary of Berkshire Hathaway, Inc. of Omaha, Nebraska. 4. The current CEO is Catherine Farmer. 5. According to corporate press releases, BNSF Railway is among the top transporters of intermodal freight in North America. It also hauls bulk cargo, including coal. The creation of BNSF started with the formation of a holding company on September 22, 1995. This new holding company purchased the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railway, often called the Santa Fe and Burlington Northern Railroad, and formally merged the railways into the Burlington Northern and Santa Fe Railway on December 31, 1996. 6. On January 24, 2005, the railroad's name was officially changed to BNSF Railway Company, using the initials of its original name. 7. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway acquired BNSF Railway in February 2010, obtaining all of its shares and taking the company private. BNSF and its chief competitor, the Union Pacific Railroad, have a duopoly on all transcontinental freight rail lines in the western, midwestern, and southern United States and share trackage rights over thousands of miles of track. The Norfolk Southern Railway reporting mark NS is a Class I freight railroad operating in the eastern United States. Headquartered in Atlanta, the company was formed in 1982 with the merger of the Norfolk and Western Railway and Southern Railway. 4. The company operates 19,420 route miles, 31,250 kilometers in 22 eastern states, the District of Columbia. 5. And has rights in Canada over the Albany to Montreal route of the Canadian Pacific Kansas City. 6. 7. Norfolk Southern Railway is the leading subsidiary of the Norfolk Southern Corporation. Norfolk Southern maintains 28,400 miles of track, with the rest managed by other parties through trackage rights. 8. Intermodal containers and trailers are the most common commodity type carried by NS, which have grown as the coal business has declined throughout the 21st century. Coal was formerly the largest traffic source. The railway offers the largest intermodal rail network in eastern North America. 9. NS was also the pioneer of road trailer service. Norfolk Southern and its chief competitor, CSX Transportation, have a duopoly on the transcontinental freight rail lines in the eastern United States. Norfolk Southern is the namesake and leading subsidiary of the Norfolk Southern Corporation, based in Atlanta, Georgia. 10. It was headquartered in Norfolk, Virginia, until 2021. 11. Norfolk Southern Corporation was incorporated in Virginia on July 23, 1980, and is publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange, NYSE, under the symbol NSC. 12. The primary business function of Norfolk Southern Corporation is the rail transportation of raw materials, intermediate products, and finished goods 13 across the Southeast, East, and Midwest United States. 14. The corporation further facilitates transport to the remainder of the United States through interchange with other rail carriers while also serving overseas transport needs by serving several Atlantic and Gulf Coast ports. As of February 2024, Norfolk Southern Corporation's total public stock value is $57.869. As of January 2024, Norfolk Southern's operating revenue is $3.07 billion. 1516. Bust Mississippi River at Hannibal cities have regular fixed route systems, and many rural counties have rural public transit services. Greyhound and Trailways provide intercity bus service in Missouri. Megabus serves St. Louis, but discontinued service to Columbia and Kansas City in 2015. 1 to 6 Greyhound Lines, Inc. Greyhound operates the largest intercity bus service in North America. Services include Greyhound Mexico, charter bus services, and Amtrak Thruway services. Greyhound operates 1,700 coaches produced mainly by Motor Coach Industries and Prevost, serving 230 stations and 1,700 destinations. 4. The company's first route began in Hibbing, Minnesota, in 1914, and the company adopted the Greyhound name in 1929. The company is owned by Flix North America, Inc., an affiliate of Flixay, the owner of Flixbus, and is based in downtown Dallas. The Trailways Transportation System is a public transport bus service in the United States. It operates a network of approximately 70 independent bus companies. The company is headquartered in Fairfax, Virginia. 1 Megabus is an intercity bus service operating in the United States and Canada. It is also the operator of the Virginia Breeze bus service. The Constitution of Missouri, the fourth constitution for the state, was adopted in 1945. It provides for 3 branches of government: the legislative, judicial, and executive branches. The legislative branch consists of 2 bodies, the House of Representatives and the Senate. These bodies comprise the Missouri General Assembly. The House of Representatives has 163 members apportioned based on the last decennial census. The Senate consists of 34 members from districts of approximately equal populations. The Judicial Department comprises the Supreme Court of Missouri, which has 7 judges, the Missouri Court of Appeals and Intermediate Appellate Court, divided into 3 districts, sitting in Kansas City, St. Louis, and Springfield, and 45 circuit courts, which function as local trial courts. The executive branch is headed by the Governor of Missouri and includes 5 other statewide elected offices. Following the departure from Office of State Auditor Nicole Galloway on January 9, 2023, there are no Democrats holding statewide elected positions in Missouri. 128 Harry S. Truman, 1884 to 1972. The 33rd President of the United States, Democrat, 1945 to 1953, was born in Lamar. He was a judge in Jackson County and then represented the state in the United States Senate for 10 years before being elected vice president in 1944. He lived in Independence after retiring as president in 1953. In a 2020 study, Missouri was ranked as 48th on the cost of voting index, with only Texas and Georgia ranking higher. 129 Missouri retains the death penalty. Authorized methods of execution include the gas chamber. 130 abortion in Missouri is legal as a result of 2020 for Missouri Amendment 3. 131. Education, Missouri State Board of Education. The Missouri State Board of Education has general authority over all public education in the state of Missouri. It is made up of 8 citizens appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Missouri Senate. Primary and secondary schools see also List of school districts in Missouri and list of high schools in Missouri. Education is compulsory from ages 7 to 17. It is required that any parent, guardian, or another person with custody of a child between the ages of 7 and 17, the compulsory attendance age for the district, must ensure the child is enrolled in and regularly attends public, private, parochial school, home school, or a combination of schools for the full term of the school year. Compulsory attendance also ends when children complete 16 credits in high school. Children in Missouri between the ages of 5 and 7 are not required to be enrolled in school. However, if they are enrolled in a public school, their parent, guardian, or custodian must ensure they regularly attend. Missouri schools are commonly, but not exclusively, divided into 3 tiers of primary and secondary education: elementary school, middle school or junior high school, and high school. The public school system includes kindergarten to 12th grade. District territories are often complex in structure. In some cases, elementary, middle, and junior high schools of a single district feed into high schools in another district. As another example, special education and related services for students in the 22 school districts of St. Louis County are provided by staff employed by a special school district, a local education agency that serves students countywide. High school athletics and competitions are governed by the Missouri State High School Activities Association, MSHSAA. Homeschooling is legal in Missouri and is an option to meet the compulsory education requirement. It is neither monitored nor regulated by the state's Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. 150 to another gifted school is the Missouri Academy of Science, Mathematics, and Computing, which is at the Northwest Missouri State University. Colleges and universities also list of colleges and universities in Missouri and list of defunct colleges and universities in Missouri. S. Hall on the University of Missouri campus. Brookings Hall at Washington University in St. Louis. University of Missouri system is Missouri's statewide public university system. The flagship institution and largest university in the state is the University of Missouri in Columbia. The others in the system are University of Missouri Kansas City, University of Missouri St. Louis, and Missouri University of Science and Technology in Rolla. During the late 19th and early 20th century, the state established a series of normal schools in each region of the state. Originally named after the geographic districts: Northeast Missouri State University, now Truman State University 1867, Central Missouri State University, now the University of Central Missouri 1871, Southeast Missouri State University 1873, Southwest Missouri State University, now Missouri State University 1905, Northwest Missouri State University 1905, Missouri Western State University 1915, Maryville University 1872, and Missouri Southern State University 1937. Lincoln University and Harris-Stowe State University were established in the mid-19th century and are historically black colleges and universities. Among private institutions, Washington University in St. Louis and St. Louis University are top-ranked schools in the U.S. 153. There are numerous junior colleges, trade schools, church universities, and other private universities in the state. A.T. Still University was the first osteopathic medical school in the world. Hannibal LaGrange University in Hannibal, Missouri, was one of the first colleges west of the Mississippi, founded 1858 in LaGrange, Missouri, and moved to Hannibal in 1928. 150 for the state funds a $3,000 renewable merit-based scholarship, Bright Flight, given to the top 3% of Missouri high school graduates who attend a university in state. The 19th century border wars between Missouri and Kansas have continued as a sports rivalry between the University of Missouri and University of Kansas. The rivalry was chiefly expressed through football and basketball games between the two universities. But since Missouri left the Big 12 Conference in 2012, the teams no longer regularly play one another. It was the oldest college rivalry west of the Mississippi River and the second oldest in the nation. Each year, when the universities met to play, the game was coined the Border War. Following the game, an exchange occurred where the winner took a historic Indian war drum, which had been passed back and forth for decades. Though Missouri and Kansas no longer have an annual game after the University of Missouri moved to the Southeastern Conference, rivalry still exists between them. Culture. Music Maine article. Music of Missouri Historic Gem Theater, located in Kansas City's renowned 18th and Vine Jazz District. Many well-known musicians were born or have lived in Missouri. These include guitarist and rock pioneer Chuck Berry, singer and actress Josephine Baker, queen of rock Tina Turner, pop singer-songwriter Sheryl Crow, Michael McDonald of the Doobie Brothers, rap producer Metro Boomin, and rappers Nelly, Chingy, and Akin, all of whom are either current or former residents. Rapper Eminem was born in St. Joseph and also lived in Savannah and Kansas City. Ragtime composer Scott Joplin lived in St. Louis and Sedalia. Jazz saxophonist Charlie Parker lived in Kansas City. Rock and roll singer Steve Walsh of the group Kansas was born in St. Louis and grew up in St. Joseph. The Kansas City Symphony and the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra are the state's major orchestras. The latter is the nation's second oldest symphony orchestra and achieved prominence in recent years under conductor Leonard Slatkin. Branson is well known for its music theaters, most of which bear the name of a star performer or musical group. Literature emissary is the native state of Mark Twain. His novels The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn are set in his boyhood hometown of Hannibal. Authors Kate Chopin, T.S. Eliot, and Tennessee Williams were from St. Louis. Kansas City-born writer William Least Heat Moon resides in Rocheport. He is best known for Blue Highways, a chronicle of his travels to small towns across America, which was on the New York Times bestseller list for 42 weeks in 1980 to 1983. Novelist Daniel Woodrell, known for depicting life in the Missouri Ozarks, was born in Springfield and lives in West Plains. Sports Maine article. Sports in Missouri has 5 major sports teams: the Royals and Cardinals of MLB, St. Louis City SC of MLS, the Chiefs of the NFL, and the Blues of the NHL. A mural honoring the Kansas City Chiefs on the wall of the Westport Ale House in Kansas City, Mo. Bush Stadium, where the St. Louis Cardinals play. Missouri hosted the 1904 Summer Olympics at St. Louis, the first time the Games were hosted in the United States. The 1904 Summer Olympics, officially the Games of the Three Olympiad, and also known as St. Louis 1904, were an international multi-sport event held in St. Louis, Missouri, United States, from the 1st of July to the 23rd of November 1904. Many events were conducted at what is now known as Francis Field on the campus of Washington University in St. Louis. This was the first time that the Olympic Games were held outside Europe. Tensions caused by the Russo-Japanese War and difficulties in traveling to St. Louis resulted in very few top-class athletes from outside the United States and Canada taking part in the 1904 Games. Only 69 to 74 of the 651 athletes who competed came from outside North America, and only between 12 and 15 nations were represented in all. Some events subsequently combined the U.S. National Championship with the Olympic Championship. 2. The current 3-medal format of gold, silver, and bronze for first, second, and third place was introduced at the 1904 Olympics. St. Louis, St. Louis. The St. Louis 11 is an independent city in the U.S. state of Missouri. It lies near the confluence of the Mississippi and the Missouri rivers. In 2020, the city proper had a population of 301,578, while its metropolitan area, which extends into Illinois, had an estimated population of over 2.8 million. It is the largest metropolitan area in Missouri and the second largest in Illinois. The city's combined statistical area is the 20th largest in the United States. 12 of the land that became St. Louis had been occupied by Native American cultures for thousands of years before Europeans say. Clement. The city was founded on February 14, 1764, by French fur traders Gilbert Antoine de Saint-Maxent, Pierre Laclede, and Auguste Chouteau. 13. They named it for King Louis IX of France, and it quickly became the regional center of the French Illinois country. In 1804, the United States acquired St. Louis as part of the Louisiana Purchase. In the 19th century, St. Louis developed as a major port on the Mississippi River from 1870 until the 1920 census. It was the fourth largest city in the country. It separated from St. Louis County in 1877, becoming an independent city and limiting its political boundaries. In 1904, it hosted the Louisiana Purchase Exposition, also known as the St. Louis World's Fair, and the Summer Olympics. 1415 St. Louis is designated as one of 173 global cities by the Globalization and World Cities Research Network. 16. The GDP of Greater St. Louis was $209.9 billion in 2022. 17. St. Louis has a diverse economy with strengths in the service, manufacturing, trade, transportation, and aviation industries. 18. It is home to 16 Fortune 1000 companies, 6 of which are also Fortune 500 companies. 19 federal agencies headquartered in the city or with significant operations there include the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. Major research universities in Greater St. Louis include Washington University in St. Louis University, and the University of Missouri St. Louis. The Washington University Medical Center in the Central West End neighborhood hosts an agglomeration of medical and pharmaceutical institutions, including Barnes Jewish Hospital. St. Louis has for professional sports teams the St. Louis Cardinals of Major League Baseball, the St. Louis Blues of the National Hockey League, St. Louis City SC of Major League Soccer, and the St. Louis Battlehawks of the United Football League. The city's attractions include the 630-foot, 192 meters Gateway Arch in downtown St. Louis, the St. Louis Zoo, the Missouri Botanical Garden, the St. Louis Art Museum, and Bellefontaine Cemetery.
T-minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of Discovery, hoisting harmony to the heavens and opening new gateways for international science. Discovery has cleared the tower.
Houston now controlling. Roll program.
Roger, roll, Discovery.
Discovery's roll maneuver is complete. It's now in a heads-down position on track for its flight to the International Space Station.